In 2013, the most massive manhunt in U.S. history took place in California. More than 2,000 police officers were deployed in search of a single suspect. However, despite being just one man, he openly declared war on the Los Angeles Police Department, and every police officer was frightened of confronting him. As for ordinary Americans, many of them, despite the fact that the wanted man was a criminal in the eyes of the police, considered him a folk hero. Christopher Dorner was born in New Jersey on July 4, 1979. While still a child, his family moved to a Los Angeles suburb in California, where Christopher spent his entire youth. He was the only black boy in his class, which is why he was often subjected to mockery from classmates. However, he never let jokes about his skin color slide, and for this reason, he often had to fight in school. In 1997, Christopher graduated from high school and enrolled at Southern Utah University. During his time at university, he made many friends. They described him as a cheerful, smiling guy for whom honesty and justice were the most important things in life. Christopher was a very powerful and athletic young man, so it's not surprising that he was quickly invited to join the university's American football team. In 2001, Christopher graduated from university with a degree in political science and psychology, after which he enlisted in the Navy. Just a year after enlisting, in 2002, Christopher commanded a security unit at Naval Air Weapons Station China Lake in Nevada. He then served as part of a mobile undersea warfare unit. During his service in the Navy in 2002, an interesting incident occurred with Christopher that characterized him well as a person. While on leave, the guy found a bag of donations for a local church. The bag contained almost $8,000. Without thinking for a second, Chris turned it into the nearest police station. This was later written about in one of Oklahoma's newspapers. When asked by journalists why he did this, Christopher replied that his mother had taught him honesty and decency, so he couldn't act otherwise. During his time in the military, Christopher received excellent combat training. He mastered many types of firearms, learned many survival techniques in combat conditions, and also mastered hand-to-hand combat techniques. He was so good in these disciplines that he was even awarded the Rifle Marksmanship Ribbon, as well as the Pistol Expert Medal. In 2005, Christopher Dorner entered the Los Angeles Police Academy. He graduated a year later, after which he was again called to the Navy and sent to Bahrain for a combat operation. He spent 6 months there, after which he returned to the police in 2007. His police service began with an internship under the guidance of a more experienced partner, Sergeant Teresa Evans. On July 28, 2007, Chris Dorner and Teresa Evans responded to a call at a local hotel. The call was related to the fact that a mentally ill person had entered the hotel and was causing disturbances to staff and guests. The police quickly subdued the troublemaker, who turned out to be Christopher Dorner. The man was indeed mentally ill. They didn't take him to the police station, but simply escorted him out of the hotel and threatened that next time they would put him behind bars, and it seemed that the incident was resolved. However, it would later play a fatal role in Christopher's fate. 2 weeks later, Christopher's mentor, Officer Teresa Evans, gave management a report on his internship. The report stated that he was not yet ready for full service, and that he needed to improve performance in several areas. The next day, Christopher filed a complaint against Officer Teresa Evans regarding the detention of Christopher Dorner, the man they had escorted out of the hotel a few days earlier. The complaint alleged that Evans used excessive force against Dorner. Dorner claimed that Evans struck Dorner twice in the face when he was already in handcuffs and lying on the floor. Based on this complaint, an internal investigation was opened. The commission heard testimony from several witnesses. Christopher Dorner's father said that when his son returned home on the day of the incident, his face was swollen, and his son claimed that he was struck by a police officer. At the time, they didn't report it to the police because the injuries were minor, and the guy himself couldn't clearly explain why he was struck. The victim himself, Christopher Dorner, also stated that a female officer struck him that day. However, Dorner later began to contradict himself in his testimony. He suffered from schizophrenia, and the commission decided that he could not be a reliable witness in this case. As for other witnesses, 3 hotel employees stated that they did not see any of the officers strike Christopher Dorner during the detention. One hotel employee also recalled telling Dorner to straighten his tie that day, but photographs from the scene showed that Dorner wasn't wearing a tie on the day of the incident, and this already compromised the hotel employee's testimony. However, in this case, there could be no compromise. There were only 2 possible outcomes. Either the commission decides that Teresa Evans struck an already immobilized detainee, which would be fraught with scandal in the press, or they decide that she is innocent, which would mean that Christopher Dorner lied in his report. In the end, the commission stated that Dorner's report was not credible, that it was partially motivated by fear that his instructor Teresa Evans would give him a poor evaluation that could end his career in the police. On September 4, 2008, 8 months after filing the complaint, Christopher Dorner was fired from the Los Angeles Police Department. However, Chris decided to go all the way. He filed endless appeals in courts of various instances, asking to be reinstated to service. But each time, he was refused. He fell into deep depression. His wife left him. He wanted to return to the army, but there too, because of his police complaint, Chris's career was also destroyed. In 2013, with honor and gratitude but against his will, Christopher Dorner was discharged from the military, and this became for Chris what finally broke him. On the evening of February 3, 2013, in the town of Irvine, California, the bodies of a young couple were found. 28-year-old Monica Kwon and 27-year-old Keith Lawrence. They were both fatally shot in the parking lot near their home. Monica was the daughter of former local police chief and now attorney Randall Kwon. Her fiancé, Keith Lawrence, was an officer in the Department of Public Safety. Everything was done very professionally. The perpetrator left no clues, and the most logical version seemed to be that this incident was revenge on Monica's father by one of the local gangs for his police past. However, the very next day, a document appeared on the internet that puts all the pieces together. It was an open letter from Christopher Dorner to the American people. It consisted of more than 11,000 words. Here are just some excerpts from it. I know that most of you who know me personally don't believe what the media says about me. You tell yourself that this is not in the character of the person you knew. I know that the press and the LAPD will vilify me. Unfortunately, this is a necessary evil that I do not enjoy, but I must accept it that substantial changes occur in the LAPD. The question is, what would you do to clear your name? A name is more than just a noun. It's your life, your legacy, your sacrifices, and everything you've worked hard for every day of your life. Whether as a teenager, young adult, or mature person, don't let anyone tarnish it if you're clear in your conscience. On July 2007, I filed a complaint against Officer Teresa Evans for using force on a suspect. While handcuffing suspect Christopher Dorner, Evans struck him twice in the chest and once in the face. The strike to the face left a visible wound on his left cheek. It's appalling when an officer uses force on a mentally ill person. Unfortunately, after reporting this, nothing was done by the supervisory authorities. I violated their corporate ethics, and 10 months later, after successfully completing my probationary period, I was fired from the LAPD. It's clear as day that the department retaliated against me this way for the complaint against Evans. In September, during the hearing on my case, a video was played where Christopher Dorner stated that he was indeed struck by a female officer. This was also confirmed by his father, but they still found me guilty and fired me. During the hearings, the department unsuccessfully tried to label me a bully. They claimed that I bullied recruit Abraham Schifrin at the academy. when in fact the investigation showed that I stood up for Abraham, when other recruits were singing Nazi songs about burning the Jewish ghetto. Knowing that Abraham's father was a Holocaust survivor, how the hell dare you say such things about me? Why didn't you charge me with filing a false police report when I claimed that Evans struck Mr. Christopher Dorner? You should have filed criminal charges against me, but you didn't do that because you knew I was innocent, and a criminal court would have found me innocent and exposed your department for covering up the truth and retaliation. That's why you didn't file criminal charges. I asked journalists to investigate every place where I lived as a child, find all the instances where I was accused of being a bully. You won't be able to do it because it simply doesn't exist. It's not in my DNA. I have exhausted all available options to reclaim my honest name. I have used all legal judicial efforts within the framework of appeals to higher courts. This is my last resort. The LAPD is trying to suppress the truth, and now it will lead to a deadly outcome. The actions of the LAPD cost me my career, which began on July 2, 2005, and ended on February 1, 2009. Essentially, I lost everything because the LAPD took my name and trampled it. Captain Phil Tingrides, Deputy Chief David Doan, Sergeant Anderson, all of you knew I was innocent, but decided to finish me off. For the sake of Officer Evans's career, I know about the meeting between all of you where Evans's attorney admitted that she struck Christopher Dorner. Know that your day has come. Fortunately, I don't have to live every day like most of you. Self-preservation no longer matters to me. I'm not afraid of the end, because I died long ago. On February 1st, 2009, the attacks will stop when the department publicly declares the truth of my innocence. I will not accept any currency in exchange for stopping, nor do I want it. I only need my name. There will be no negotiations. I know all your techniques, tactics, and procedures. Any threat assessments you use will be useless. I have nothing to lose. My personal loss means nothing. You cannot defeat a fighter who is not afraid to fall. An enemy who accepts their fate is a formidable opponent. You know I was always the best shooter. Suppressing the truth will lead to deadly consequences for you and your families. I know your daily routine, the routine of your loved ones, and even your children. Where you work, live, eat, and sleep, there will be an element of surprise. Whatever pre-planned responses you've developed for a scenario like me, put them aside. I will not harm civilians unless it's a deadly threat to me. I also don't want to harm ordinary patrol officers. Therefore, civilians and patrol officers, if you see my vehicle, you shouldn't pursue it. If you continue to follow me or notify police of my location, hoping to get a Medal of Valor, know that you will not survive. Your family will receive a Medal of Valor posthumously. It will gather dust on the mantelpiece for years, and then one day it will go into a showbox with other memories of you. Your mother will lose a son or daughter. Your significant other will be left alone, but they will find someone else to fill the void, and in the future, they will be happy with another person. Your children, if you have them, will call someone else mom or dad. Don't be selfish. Think of your loved ones before trying to stop me. Also think about whether these liars and scoundrels are worth you losing your life for them. For ordinary Americans, I want to say, don't think that a police officer is your friend by default. They will watch you suffer, claiming while waiting for an ambulance that it's not their business. They photograph the bodies of your loved ones from their mobile phones and play a game of who has the most disturbing scene with officers from other units. This is done not only by 20-year-old brainless punks, but also by mature 50-year-old officers. For my friends listed below, I wanted us to grow old together and spend more time together. When you remember our friendship, think about this and only this. Don't dwell on my last actions. This was a necessary evil that had to be carried out for me to reclaim my name. I thank my friends for the amazing shared experiences. It's a bit sad, but I won't be around to watch and enjoy the third part of The Hangover in Vegas. What an amazing trilogy. Todd Phillips. You shouldn't make a fourth part so as not to lose something special that's in this trilogy. Once again, I thank all my friends. You guys were all very important to me. Don't be angry at me for missing some of your weddings and, unfortunately, some funerals. Some say it's my fault that I was fired. I remember being told in a fit of anger that I should have kept my mouth shut. Maybe if I had, none of this would have happened. But I'm not built like others. It's not in my nature. I'm not a beginning rapper. I'm not a gang member. I'm not a drug dealer. I'm an American by choice and a son, a brother, a military man. I'm a person who has completely lost faith in the system when the system betrayed and slandered him. I've lived a good life, and although I wasn't a religious person, I always adhered to my personal ethical code. I didn't need the Navy to instill honor in me. It was already in my DNA. But I thank you for strengthening it. Mom told me that sometimes bad things happen to good people. I refuse to accept that. In his address, Christopher Dorner declared war on those people who were involved in his dismissal. His first victim was the daughter of the attorney who represented him in court, Randall Korn. Since, in Dorner's opinion, Korn was in cahoots with the LAPD and deliberately sabotaged Dorner's defense line. At this moment, some major hunts began. Christopher Dorner's hunt for the people mentioned in his address, and the California police's hunt for Christopher Dorner. Not surprisingly, immediately after publishing his address, Christopher Dorner became the most discussed person in the United States. More than 2,000 police officers were assigned to protect the homes of his alleged victims and to capture him. But the problem was that most of the Los Angeles patrol consisted either of recent police academy graduates or simply people who, in the course of their service, had never encountered such a dangerous person as Christopher Dorner. He was an excellent military trainee, a brilliant shooter, and a person who had participated in real combat operations. He knew all their methods of work and could skillfully counter any attempts by the police to establish his location. Not surprisingly, the police were quite frightened of confronting him, so much so that even at the slightest suspicion of his location, they would open fire to eliminate the threat. This led to the fact that during the hunt for Christopher Dorner, several civilians were injured. But the culprit was not Dorner, but the police themselves. In particular, on February 7 at 5:30 a.m., near the home of one of Dorner's alleged victims, police fired more than 50 rounds at a blue Toyota. According to police, the car fit the description of Dorner's vehicle, but in the car was 71-year-old Margie Carranza and her 47-year-old mother, Emma Hernandez. Every morning, the women delivered newspapers in this area. The police claimed that the car was moving with its headlights off. Both women survived but received some injuries. They explained that they didn't turn on the headlights in the morning so as not to wake anyone with bright lights. Later, the Los Angeles administration had to pay compensation to the injured women in the amount of $4 million. That was probably enough to never deliver newspapers again. Half an hour after this incident, police rammed another vehicle and also opened fire on it. According to them, it also fit the description of Dorner's pickup. But as it turned out, the car was a completely different make and even a different color. And behind the wheel was a white man who was also not injured in the shooting. Later, T-shirts with the inscription, "I'm not Christopher Dorner. Please don't shoot me" were sold on the internet, ionizing about police paranoia. The police's fear was quite logical because by this time Christopher Dorner had managed to commit another attack. On February 7, at approximately 1:30 a.m., two police officers were on their way to guard one of the officers mentioned in Dorner's letter. They were stopped by a civilian named Lima Daniel, who reported that he had seen a man resembling Dorner at a nearby gas station. The police went to the gas station and indeed found a pickup near it that matched the description of Dorner's vehicle. They followed right behind it when suddenly the pickup stopped. The driver's door opened, and Dorner fired several shots at the patrol car, wounding both officers. They both survived but could no longer continue the pursuit. Approximately 25 minutes after this, in a neighboring part of the city, another patrol car spotted a vehicle resembling Dorner's pickup, but they were less fortunate than their colleagues. During the shootout, Dorner fatally wounded Officer Michael Crane and also seriously wounded trainee Andrew Takias. He didn't finish off the trainee and fled the scene. A taxi driver who witnessed the shootout rushed to help the police. The best thing he could do in this situation was to bring the police radio to the mouth of the immobilized Andrew Takias so he could report to the dispatcher what had happened. An ambulance arrived at the scene swiftly. Andrew Takias was taken to the hospital. He underwent a serious operation but survived. His mentor, Michael Crane, passed away right at the scene. He, as Dorner had written in his open letter, received a Medal of Valor, but received it posthumously. His wife lost a husband, and his children lost a father. Dorner himself skillfully fled the scene, and despite the fact that the entire city police were looking for him, he seemed to dissolve into thin air. Only 7 hours later, his pickup was found burned 120 kilometers from Los Angeles. Police assumed he had fled to the mountains, but every step had to be taken with special caution because Dorner could be waiting for police with a sniper rifle absolutely anywhere. 2 days after this, on February 9, authorities announced that they intended to review the case that led to Dorner's dismissal. Already on the 5th day after Dorner published his address, the highest monetary reward in California history was announced for any information that would lead to his capture: $1 million. This was the most massive manhunt in U.S. history. Several thousand police officers were involved in the search. Authorities used round-the-clock aerial surveillance of the region, but Dorner still managed to hide successfully. This was largely helped by a sudden snowfall that significantly impaired visibility, but it created problems not only for the police but also for Dorner himself, since in such weather he clearly needed to take shelter somewhere. Police assumed he might be hiding in one of the hundreds of mountain cabins located in this residential area. However, when checking each one, every patrol officer knocking on the door understood that this could cost him his life. Only 5 days after Dorner's burned car was found, did police manage to pick up his trail. This happened only because Dorner, as promised, did not take the lives of ordinary civilians. On February 12, the San Bernardino Police Department received a phone call. The caller was a certain Karen Reynolds. She said that Dorner had broken into their cabin, tied her and her husband up, took their car, and left. He asked them not to call the police. However, immediately after Dorner left their home, Karen managed to free herself and immediately reported to the police where and in what car Dorner was traveling. He could have eliminated them both, and then the police still wouldn't know where he was. But Chris remained true to his principles and did not harm Karen and her husband. Soon the stolen car was found crashed, after which another person contacted the San Bernardino police. According to the man, he was sitting in a pickup on the side of the road with his dog. Suddenly the car door opened, and he saw Christopher Dorner with a weapon in his hands. Dorner told him, "I don't want to hurt you, but I need your car, so take your dog and just go." This time, police managed to get on Dorner's tail. One of the helicopters spotted the stolen pickup near a cabin. It was assumed that Dorner had barricaded himself in the cabin. The first to arrive there were Alex Collins and Jeremiah McKay. Dorner didn't give them a single chance, firing at both. Soon all the main forces of the police and special forces were thrown at the cabin. But for Dorner, there was no way back. He was surrounded. The area within a 5-kilometer radius was completely cordoned off, but for Dorner, this was no longer important. At first, police tried to get him out, using tear gas and demanding over a loudspeaker that he surrender. When Dorner didn't respond, police used an excavator to demolish part of the cabin, after which incendiary rounds were fired into the remaining part of the cabin, which led to the cabin catching fire. Police offered Dorner to surrender, but he made a different choice. Already inside the burning cabin, Christopher made his last decision. The fire continued until evening, and only the next day did police report that human remains were found in the burned cabin. Medical examiners confirmed that they belonged to Christopher Dorner. The cause of his passing was self-inflicted. After these events, public opinion was divided into two camps. Some believed that Dorner was an ordinary criminal and that he deserved what happened. Others, on the contrary, considered Dorner a folk hero who fought for his honor. In their opinion, he opened society's eyes to the falseness of the police, and in revenge, the police didn't even try to take him alive and deliberately burned him alive. In any case, whoever Christopher Dorner was, for you a righteous avenger, or just a punisher, his story is unlikely to leave anyone indifferent.